gorilla, nature. Bro, let's go skate. Dude, E equals MC squared. Nerd for life.
Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, you guys? Your boy, Pastor Darius here. And I want to welcome you guys to another episode of Pastor Darius Knows Things. I am very, very excited today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead, hop right in. Today, we're going to be talking about the test of integrity. Ooh, very interesting. So, um, yeah, let's just hop straight into it. We're going to be talking about, we're going to start off with the Bible scripture. The Bible story is about Joseph and Potiphar's wife. And this is coming from Genesis chapter 39, verse 6 through 12, which states, "So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome." Oh man, I don't know if you guys see where this story is going, but we're gonna keep going. He was well built. Joseph was well built and handsome. Oh man. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to my bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though he spoke to Joseph day after, or though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Wow, that's crazy. Joseph. Wow, man. That's crazy. Can you imagine? Can you imagine like having to to be in that type of situation? I mean, that's just absurd. It's just absurd. Wow, that's crazy. Personally, I would not like to be in a situation like that to where my integrity is my integrity is being put to the test by somebody so that's, just imagine, right? You got a job, you're working at that job, and the boss that runs that company has pretty much like gave you free reign over the company. Pretty much you are the top directly under the person who runs the company. And that guy's wife takes notice of you. You know what I'm saying? Right? And then she starts making advances towards you. I mean, gosh, bro. Oh, that's tough. That's tough because Potiphar, being the high ranking individual that he is, right? I'm pretty sure that his wife was probably bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I mean bad. I mean she looked real good. You know what I'm saying? I'm positive that Potiphar's wife was on point. You know what I'm saying? On fleek. Whatever they using, I don't know what it is. They got a whole bunch of nonsense in this current day and time. But there has to be a point where your personal principles outweigh temporary satisfaction. I'll repeat that again. There has to be a point where your principles outweigh temporary satisfaction. How my question for you guys is when, like, at what is the value of you as a person? I've been thinking about this for a while, and in one of my podcasts, I was talking about how there is like certain things you can't really put a price on them. And it's true, you can't. Certain things you can't put a price on. You can't put a price on a loyal friend. A lot of people are walking around and they don't even have an honest to God loyal friend who, if God forbid, 3 o'clock in the morning, you end up in jail, you call that person and, like they see that you're calling or whatever, they ignore the call, find out that you're in jail and they do nothing. They have no response. And, personally, I got rid of all those people. Real talk, bro. I got rid of all those people. All the people in my life who I felt were not adding value to my quality of life, right? Helping me to become the person that I desire to be, right? The people around you should be lifting you up and helping to make you, to cultivate that individual that you're desiring to be, And I mean, integrity is one of those things that you really can't buy. There's no store that you can go to, man, and just be like, oh, you know what, man, let me take like, well, how much does $1,000 get me of integrity? It doesn't work like that. Either you got it or you don't. Certain things you cannot buy. So let's keep going. So Joseph, a slave, was entrusted with great responsibility. Potiphar's wife repeatedly tried to seduce him, right? Because Joseph refused, declaring, "How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Joseph didn't even see this as a sin against his master. The person who entrusted him. He's seen this as a sin against God. Wow. That's interesting. Wow. When you have such a great relationship with the creator of all existence, the one who gives breath, the one who created all things, beginning and end, Alpha and Omega. Boy, I'll tell you what. So yeah, that was from Genesis 39:9, right? He chose integrity and obedience to God over personal comfort and safety, even facing false accusation and imprisonment as a result. Some people, if it came down to it, and they were going to be put in a situation where their integrity, either they were going to have their integrity and they were going to do what is right. What if the cost of doing what is right is your freedom or the job that you have? Some people are willing to sit back and and watch horrible things happen around them, and watch, instead of, making a stand and living a life with purpose, like it's crazy, man. How many people walk by homeless people, and even though you have the ability to do something, you may not be able to get that person, and fix whatever mental issues that they have, because a lot of homeless people are there because they have mental issues. But which it doesn't mean that you can't get that person a hot meal or, just, maybe a nice drink. I mean, a bottle of water or a soda could make all the difference in that person's day, and just give them some good words. Spend, like, I remember This is probably one of the craziest situations. I'll tell you guys about a story. All right, there's this one time where this is when I used to be an Uber driver, right? And so during this time, I had I'll start with the. All right, so I had a Infinity QX60, right? This was like it's like a $60,000 to $70,000 car, right? And that was my Uber car that I was using at the time. I was very fortunate because like I say, I'll tell you guys about those good friends, right? Well, one of my good friends was blessed me with the ability to drive this car. And so I did. I drove the car, right? I used it for Uber. I was paying off the car. His credit was getting built. Everybody was benefiting. I was able to make my money. You know what I'm saying? I just gave him a certain amount of money each month for the car, right? Now, I'm gonna try not to keep this story going super long. So essentially, I had stopped off at one of the local 7-Elevens. There was a homeless guy sitting on the street. Now, the thing about me is that just like right now, right? I don't wear like suits or, it doesn't matter how much money I make, right? I'm not really the type of person who wants to be walking around wearing like, the newest clothes, like I don't care about Jordans or Yeezys or any of that stuff. I don't care about any of those things. I don't care about, it's not big for me, Balenciaga, all that. It means nothing to me, bro. Like real talk, bro. Like all that means nothing to me, man. That's poor people making rich people more rich, but anyway, we're getting off topic here. So there's a homeless guy sitting in front of 7-Eleven. I'm like, Jamaican kid. And I don't know, man. Like my dad came from poverty. My mom came from poverty. So whenever I see people in difficult situations, I always want to do something. So the guy was sitting there in front of the store. And so I went in and I was getting ready to buy myself like, a little snack, sandwich and some chips and a drink. So I was like, okay, I'll get him also a sandwich, chips, and a drink. And then, but like I was saying, right, like I don't just like speak about stuff. I'm telling you about things that I have done or that I actively am doing in my life. I run an international nonprofit, all that. Anyway, the guy was sitting on the floor. So, I was like, hey, I walked, I was like, hey man, I got you a sandwich and some chips and a drink, and I gave it to him. And then I was like, is it okay if I sit down with you, man, and talk with you for a bit? He's like, yeah, it's fine, but just sit over there, because he didn't want me to sit super close to him. I was like, okay, no problem. So, I sat down on the floor, and I remember I had the QX60. I had just got out the car, $70,000 car. At this time, I was making like $8,000 to $10,000 a month, right? So I'm sitting on the floor, and it's kind of interesting how things work, because some guy walked by, and he just see me sitting on the floor, and then he reached in his pocket and gave me $1. It's no joke, bro. This guy reached in his pocket and gave me $1, and then like the story gets kind of interesting towards the end. So now here I am, this guy making all this money. Driving this super expensive car. I was living in, I was renting a room in like $1 million house at that time. I was living in the downtown of the main, one of the main cities, right? And so that guy thought I was homeless because I was sitting on the floor eating a bag of chips and drinking with the other, right down the way, right next to the other guy, that was actually homeless. And, I just sat there and I just talked with him like a human being, bro. That's how we're supposed to do, bro. Like just because somebody's in a lower position doesn't mean that you're better than they are. It just means that your circumstances are different. So now, this is where things really get interesting because, I had finished my bag of chips and my drink, and then I gave the $1 to the homeless guy that was sitting on the street. I was like, here, bro, somebody gave this to me. And then I got up, and then I was walking to my car. I walked, and then I got in my car. Now, the guy that had gave me $1 watched me walk and get into my car. and he had this look on his face like, what the heck? I promise you, bro. He was like, bro, he was confused. He didn't know what was happening. And then I drove away. You know what I'm saying? Wow, crazy, crazy situation, right? But anyway, like I say, right? The whole point of this story is, the fact about the homeless guy, me sitting down with him and treating him like a human being, which he was, which they all are. You hear what I'm saying? I mean, I remember this one time, there's this guy, he was like standing on the side of the freeway, and then, I gave him a bottle of water, and then, or he was like on the side of he was in the intersection in the middle of of the street. So I don't know, man. I just like gave him the bottle of water. Oh, thank you. And it was really hot outside, and I got out. I stopped the car, put my car in park, got out the car, and then I was like, "Hey, man, come here." And I gave the guy a hug. And keep in mind, this guy's homeless. He's stinky. You don't smell good. You know what I'm saying? But like, bruh, man, like, how long has that person went without getting a hug is the question, and getting validation. Like, I think those things matter. That we treat people around us like humans. There are so many people who get rich, and then they just forget to be human. They forget what it means to be human. Being human means, caring about other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that the more money that I get, the more I want to give. So let's keep going, huh? Now we're going to be looking at historical story. Howard Schultz and Starbucks. Ooh, okay, all right. In the early days, Schultz passionately believed in expanding Starbucks beyond selling beans. When the original owners resisted his vision of a cafe experience, he left and started his own company. Oh, interesting. So, I think it's Giornali. Second Giornali or something like that. I think that's the name of the company. Despite facing financial hurdles and skepticism, his unwavering belief and perseverance led him to eventually buy Starbucks back and built it into a global phenomenon. His integrity to his vision and his relentless pursuit transformed an industry. You guys. Perseverance and integrity. Sometimes you have to walk away from things if you don't agree with it. Just because somebody pays you money doesn't mean that you have to become an evil person. And I know that there's a lot of these businesses out there nowadays. I mean, Google is one of my favorite companies. Apple, I don't really like Apple, but there's a lot of these top companies: Google, Apple, Samsung. You got Sony. You got all these corporations out here, right? And the fact is that some of these corporations, you can go into those jobs, and they have politics within the corporation, which is, you would think that's insane, right? But the fact is, everybody wants to move up. Everybody wants more money. I guess not everybody. I'm sure there's some people who just are complacent with having, a job at the place. But, I think that the people at the top of the corporation, they want people who want to move up the ranks. They want that competition, because the competition is going to push people to be more creative and to get their work done faster and to work harder, right? So there are politics inside of these corporations, and people connive against each other. Let me tell you, man, if you got to connive and try and figure out how you can destroy somebody else's life so that you can get ahead, bro, it's probably not the place for you, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's probably not the place for you. There's probably a better place that you can work at, where they're not going to push for you to become the worst version of yourself. Success, being successful doesn't solely mean having more money. That, I'm sorry, I know that a lot of people would say, oh, that's the definition of success. The person who's the richest is the most successful. Well, there's some people I know of who did not have loads of riches and wealth, but I kind of feel that they were successful. The first person I think of was Jesus Christ. I got to start there. Jesus didn't have a whole lot of money. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus was broke. Jesus was a carpenter. Carpenters during that time used to get money. They used to get bread. Heard what I'm saying? Everything was built of wood. Everything was built of wood. So, but again, right? Jesus wasn't living in no mansion. Jesus was born in a manger. You know what I'm saying? Come on, y'all. Come on. Anyway, so let's continue. Another individual I could think of would be, I want to say Nelson Mandela. We don't really know Nelson Mandela for being like the most wealthy and the most rich individual. We do know Nelson Mandela for fighting against apartheid in South Africa. We do know about that. He's a world renowned historical figure, right? Who else? Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, man. Mahatma Gandhi wasn't known for having super wealth or being super rich, but Mahatma Gandhi was known for fighting to unite the country of India and free them from British rule. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, there's Martin Luther King here in the United States, right? I feel like so many people are pushing themselves to just make money, bro. If making more money means you have to sell drugs, which directly puts yourself in the possibility, like sell illegal drugs, which directly puts yourself in the possibility of being incarcerated, losing your freedom. You know what I'm saying? And if you have a family, you got kids and a wife, and your excuse is, well, I want my kids to have a better life. Well, at what cost, bro? What if you get caught? Then what's going to happen? Who's going to provide for your family when you're in jail and you can't work anymore? You know what I'm saying? We have to think about these consequences. We have to make good decisions, good life decisions, not just for ourselves, but for the ones that we care about. Sometimes you have to sacrifice, and we have to do what's right because it's right. We don't know what's going to happen 5-10 years from now. You making the right decision today could lead to you having an incredible life in 5-10 years from now. That's like the person who decided that, you know what? I have friends and my friends are like thugs, they're gangsters and stuff like that. Instead of me becoming a thug and end up going to prison or end up having to try to kill somebody, because they're trying to hurt me, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get a quality education. So that person does that. They go to school, they get a quality education, and then, school is hard. They get in debt. They have to work 2 jobs to put themselves through college, And then, maybe they start off at junior college because they can't afford to go directly to the university, or maybe maybe education is just hard for them. So they struggle, and they struggle mentally or whatever it may be, but they don't give up and they keep working hard at it. And they see their other friends, like guys who are like drug dealers or pimps or, guys who are, scammers or whatever it may be, and people who do all the wrong stuff, thieves and crooks and stuff like that. And those people end up going to jail. They end up going to prison. Some of the people end up dying, and this person, they're in college. Their life is hard. It's difficult. But after about 6, maybe 8 years of, they go through associates, they go through bachelors, maybe they get a master's degree. After that 6 years, or maybe you become a doctor, you go for like 8, 10, or 12 years. Bro, when that person graduates and after they graduate, after all that struggle and hardship that they went through, you know what follows? Quality of life. You guys, I highly recommend that you take the steps to live a life with integrity. Live your life with integrity. And it may be a test. There may be a lot of tests along the way. There will be situations where you feel that doing the wrong thing is the better option. I'm here to tell you now, do what's right so you can have quality of life. It's about longevity. Short term. Short term, don't focus on the short term successes. Don't focus on trying to get rich quick. You know, sometimes the path is going to be long and difficult. Long and difficult. But it'll make it that much sweeter when you receive the gift of success. You guys, your boy Pastor Darius here. Thank you for watching another episode of Pastor Darius Knows Things. Get out there and live with integrity. Catch y'all next time. Peace.